All right, so today we're going to be discussing Colby Covington and his drawing ability or lack thereof. This came up because him and Jorge got into it at the press conference, and I think that we all assume because of Colby's antics and because of his, viewership on his interviews, the amount of buzz he generates, that he is a bigger draw than he is in terms of his viewing, like the amount of views he gets for his fight. So I
Um,
have I've crunched some numbers. I'll give you guys all my numbers, and if you want to dispute that in any way, you're more than welcome to.
Mhm.
So here we go. First things first. Let's say that we're not going to look at anything before the interview at the end of the Damian Maia fight, right? That's when Colby started his shtick. I think that's fair. The fact that he wasn't able to draw before that doesn't matter. We know he wasn't. So we're only looking at things after the Maia fight here, right? So after the Maia fight, he cuts his promo. His views go all the way the fuck up. He becomes whatever, like a somewhat big deal. His next fight is for the interim welterweight title with RDA. It's the co-main event of UFC, I believe, is 225. Whitaker and Romero, I think, if I'm wrong, correct me. That did 250,000 buys. That is not impressive, and he had another main event fight on the card to help prop it up, and 250K is not impressive. Next, he fought, I believe it was Robbie Lawler. Yes, it was Robbie Lawler in 2019. That was a UFC ESPN 5 card. That was the lowest viewed card on ESPN up to that point all year, I think. I think there were 4 before it. This one was the lowest. It was around 650,000. No other card was lower than 800,000 in terms of views. And this is for a free fight. So now this is still into 2019, deep into Colby's shtick with the belt and the Trump and the White House thing, and 650,000 views on a free fight. Now we get to the Usman pay-per-view fight. Colby versus Usman, no numbers for that. We can't really say anything, but there's no numbers.
Aren't there numbers though? Like
None officially. No, there's no. I couldn't find anything. I looked around a lot.
isn't it
Colby
700?
Usman won. That's Colby Usman 2. We're talking Colby Usman 1.
Yeah, I would assume that because there's no numbers, that it's like less than 500,000.
It's less than 500. That was my assumption also. So easily less than 500,000. I don't want to speculate beyond that, but no more than 5, probably. I think that's fair.
Yeah.
Okay. Next, we get Colby versus Woodley. That was in September of 2020. Again, very deep into the shtick. He's just coming off the title fight with Woodley 9 months before, and that got 1 million views on a free fight. Now, to put that into perspective, similar UFC and ESPN cards that also got 1 million views around that time were main evented by Irene Aldana and Holly Holm and Anthony Smith and Devin Clark, and all of those were topped by the free UFC card of Walt Harris and Alistair Overeem, which did 1.2 million views. So I think that one says it all. And then we have Colby Kamaru to 700K. This is Colby's biggest claim to being a draw. He did 700K with Kamaru, but Kamaru did twice that with Jorge once, and that same amount with Jorge the second time. And like Colby and Kamaru was a competitive fight the first time that people thought could go either way. Everyone like almost knew that, like Jorge and Kamaru had a really boring first fight, and they sold as much as Colby and Kamaru, who had an amazing first fight with an amazing undercard. That was one of the best undercards of the entire year with Gaethje and Chandler and all that. And Kamaru was, if not the A side, they were on equal footing.
No, I dispute that immediately.
All right, so I mean,
but we're letting you go through your numbers first. But
so I mean, those are all the numbers. Even if I would conclude by saying that even if we say Colby and Kamaru are on equal footing in their ability to sell that pay-per-view, and Kamaru has over 3 times more followers than Colby on Insta and almost twice as many on Twitter. Like, people care about Kamaru more than they care about Colby, and that's a fact. Like, the only thing Colby has is YouTube interview clips, and those don't translate to pay-per-view buys. Colby has had Justin Gaethje has sold more pay-per-views than Colby Covington. Justin Gaethje has 2 700K cards, and Colby has 1. And all is the B side on the card. So I mean that. I'm not saying Colby's not a draw, but Colby is nowhere near Colby can't main event a card by himself as the A side, and that's just what it is. Unless there's a on the line.
I guess my first thing is, how do you define a draw? Because I'm not gonna say he's Conor McGregor.
No one's Conor McGregor. That's
I know, but how are you defining draw would be my case.
So I would say, like, when you think of the people who could, like, main event a card. People who can like main event a card without a title on the line consist like Masvidal. When you think like Masvidal, Diaz, Izzy, people like that who consistently get 700, 800K plus numbers like that. People who consistently get a cut of perfect. Colby's not even getting a cut of this pay-per-view. If that doesn't tell you all there is about his value, like he's not getting a cut because he's. Can you imagine Masvidal not getting a cut of a pay-per-view's main eventing? Can you imagine Conor not getting a cut? Like, can you imagine Diaz got a cut for being the third fight on the card?
Okay, so what was your definition again? You seem to kind of went off into a weird side tangent.
I was gonna say, so he's not like not a draw, but he's not like he's an average draw at best.
An average draw at best.
He's much worse at drawing. We all assume that he was like a big. He's not. He's very average, if not underwhelming, for the amount of press that he gets and the amount of coverage that he gets. That how little it translates to viewership for his fights.
Well, I can you give me, I guess, more of a tangible thing because you're just kind of saying it's kind of very floaty still.
I'm saying the amount, like his drawing ability is overrated by everybody. Like he is not as big of a draw as we think he is. I'm not saying he's not a draw at all. I'm saying he's not as big of a draw.
Average draw. What does average mean?
Like he can't headline. Like he's not the A side. He can't headline a card by himself.
Okay.
He's a solid name you put in there and people will watch his interviews, but he's nothing special. Like do
you think Jorge could headline a pay-per-view by himself?
He did.
What?
Which one?
244 with Diaz.
But that's with Nate Diaz, and that's with a belt on the line, technically.
And Jorge's doing it now.
Wait.
Jorge's the A side here.
That wasn't by himself at all, because that was a really hype pay-per-view too. So like you had Diaz, you had
The Rock was there.
Masvidal, The Rock. That was about to bring the BMF title. It was really hyped and really well. I think they literally created a new title for that one fight.
Jorge is main eventing this card right now with Colby as the A side. So yes, Jorge can main event a card as the A side.
I don't know if they're the A side.
My question,
there's no debate that Jorge's the A side. Jorge sold over 1 million pay-per-views. Like Colby's there's no debate.
My question is like, okay, so can Jorge main event a pay-per-view with anyone other than Colby?
Diaz again? Either Diaz.
Okay, but that's not with a combination of Diaz who has star power.
Yeah, probably. You could probably put Jorge against anybody that's almost fun. Fucking Luque, Masvidal, Luque. Who cares?
That's not a headline. That's not a pay-per-view headliner.
Yeah,
Masvidal's a pay-per-view headliner.
No, it's not. Let's be honest.
Yeah,
you're real. That's a fight night.
Yeah. No, Masvidal's never a fight night. Masvidal's a main event now. Every fight's a main event for Masvidal. Same like maybe like lower on like Diaz versus Edwards, but Masvidal's like a head like getting Masvidal will always get a cut of the pay-per-view because he's a draw.
I feel like when you try to disparage Colby by using a headline of Fight Night, you had like Derek Lewis, Alistair Overeem, who could easily like main event a pay-per-view, right? Alistair Overeem was literally a world champion. I don't think there's any shame in him headlining a Fight Night. You know,
Derek Lewis didn't. I never mentioned Derek Lewis.
No, but I'm saying that is headlining a Fight Night really a bad thing? Like, is that
really... headlining a Fight Night is not a bad thing. But if Colby was really set, like, can you like, why is if Colby was as big of a draw as the perception is, how are his Fight Nights averaging the same viewership as Holly Holm and Irene Aldana and Anthony Smith and Devin Clark? Like, that doesn't make sense.
I guess I just feel like if Jorge wasn't fighting Colby, he's headlining a Fight Night or he's like a co-main eventer. Like he's not headlining. Like the reason this is a pay-per-view is because of the story that is generated. It's because of the fact that like, they used to be
maybe
that might be
true. But Jorge is the A side. Jorge is getting a cut of the pay-per-view.
Maybe like if he's the A side, like 60% the A side, and then like Colby's the other 40%. It's not it's not the same as Conor McGregor versus like Dustin Poirier. It's not like that at all.
What?
Not at all.
It's not like that because Conor is so big of a star, it dwarfs everybody else. But it's like Jorge's a much bigger deal.
I don't think
Jorge is one of the highest selling UFC pay-per-views ever. Jorge is one of the few people who sold a pay-per-view like to the level of Conor McGregor.
I think this is again kind of You keep ignoring context. Wasn't that the first Fight Island pay-per-view too?
Also, that one was like special because it was basically during the pandemic when no sports was happening, right?
It was the third.
It was a Fight Island.
Show they did.
It was like the first
It
Fight Island. It was
the third show they did.
And I think, well, Dermer, you also got to let him speak, you know.
Yeah, and then they Usman and Jorge rematched again, and it was like what 700, 800? I think that's more in line with like what it would draw under normal circumstances. Like that Usman Jorge one was not normal. Yeah. I think we could agree on that.
I think part of it too, and this might be speculation. I don't know if there's no data to back me up with this, but I actually feel like short notice replacement fights get more hype than the actual long term pay-per-views because they get more coverage. It's like with Diaz too, where it's like, oh shit, they pulled out. Like I think Diaz outsold RDA because of the pull out thing, but I could see the same thing for Masvidal with Usman. I was like, oh shoot, there. That's why their second fight didn't draw nearly as much. Drew the same as Colby.
Or because it was,
or because
it was boring as fuck, and everybody saw Kamaru dominate Jorge for 25 minutes and something that literally put people to sleep.
So Masvidal isn't that big of a draw then. It was your circumstance.
Yeah, and also, I mean, Colby and Usman drew 700K on a night that also had Canelo Alvarez fighting. So you got to factor that in.
I would argue that didn't hurt that much because a ton of people bought both shows. Like the amount of people. The amount of people who are budget, like if you're budgeting, you're fucking streaming it illegally. Let's just call a spade a spade. If you're budgeting it, you're streaming it illegally, and if you're not budgeting, you're just ordering all the fucking pay-per-views you want to order because you have money for it and you don't care.
I mean, I don't know if we want to. I don't know if we want to include piracy into this though, because that just means there's a lot more intangibles here. So
my point is, I don't think going against Canelo was a big hurt. I think that anyone
I mean, sure.
So then Colby's last pay-per-view did 700K. Jorge's last pay-per-view did 800K. I think they're on relatively similar footing then. Wouldn't you agree?
No, because that's the best Colby's ever done, and that's like Jorge's third or fourth biggest pay-per-view ever. So,
no, I think that's the second because they
never released. They didn't release the numbers for Diaz, but like we have to assume that they're higher.
No, why? Because again, we're working under the assumption that I think if they don't release the numbers, it's probably gonna be low, right?
Yeah.
That's kind of why if we look at like Usman Burns, the fact that they didn't release those numbers are probably low.
Yeah, and I think this is partly why Usman I think is a questionable. I think he's a mid-tier draw for like what would B tier.
I think he's a draw just because he's so dominant. Like people want it's like
Yeah, but I think he's also been privileged with a lot of really interesting storylines, right?
I agree.
Like Masvidal, then Masvidal 2, then Colby 2, and then Burns. You see the one thing that didn't really have a draw, and the guy who can't really trash talk, and then all of a sudden did really bad.
Yeah, I mean, I think in those Usman, like in the Usman versus Jorge, Usman versus Colby fights, like Jorge and Colby did a lot of the heavy lifting. Like Usman was just there because he has the title, like he has to be there. But Jorge and Colby were the ones I feel like doing the heavy lifting and promoting that fight. You know, I mean that's kind of like Colby's whole shtick is like he acts like really crazy and like tries to get people interested in the fight, and it works.
Yeah. I mean, but that's the thing. Does it work? Because even if we give him like, he did a great job with Usman. They drew 700K, like that's great. But like none of his other fights people cared about.
I mean, you're talking about fight nights. Like I don't even know how to like
his first pay-per-view with Usman, nothing special. His co-main event with RDA under like bad 250K. That's not good.
I mean, like those are a couple years ago.
His two fight nights had one of his fight nights was 2020. Like that's not that long ago. Like he was well into his gimmick and notoriety by then, and it got the same amount of views as Holly Holm versus Irene Aldana, and like that's not big draw. You know what I mean? Like that's okay. Like you got but that's not a big draw. Like the perception about Colby's ability to draw money is just way off. Like he's not even getting pay-per-view points for this fight. Like if that doesn't tell you like everything you need to know, I don't know what does, because he would take the pay-per-view points if he could get them, and the UFC basically said you're not worth that, so you're not going to get it. Like that's what it is.
I think
Jorge is worth that, so Jorge does get that.
I think he was just memeing because Honestly, I think it was just a really poor attempt at trying to sound badass. Where it's like, yeah, I'm taking a pay cut here. I'll fight this man in the parking lot here. I don't even care about pay-per-view points. In the full quote, too, he's like, this is a blood feud. So I think it's just a really poor attempt at trying to sound badass. I don't even think Dana White confirmed it.
No, he's not. No,
There's no way that's true. It literally makes no fucking sense that he would. First of all, in the quote, he literally said he took a pay cut and he didn't want the pay-per-view buys because this is personal. It's not about money. Like, think about that. Like, there's no way that's true.
Yeah, you're right. There's no way that's true. Do you know what that actually means? That means they didn't want to give me pay-per-view because I'm not worth it, and I'm not going to come out here and be like, I asked for pay-per-view, and Dana said no, I'm not worth it.
So why would Colby like intentionally out himself for that? Like, why would
he didn't out himself. He didn't say no. Jorge in his interview first said Colby is not a draw. Colby can't draw for shit. Go ask him if he's getting pay-per-view percents for this point. Jorge knows. They signed they see the contracts. Jorge fucking knows. Jorge said, go ask Colby if he's getting pay-per-view and see what he fucking says. So then they asked Colby, are you getting pay-per-view? And he said, no, I'm not getting pay-per-view. I took a pay cut. Basically meaning I didn't get the contract I wanted. No one takes a pay cut willingly.
When did Jorge say that?
In the interview before Colby's interview today. Or yesterday.
Because, the one I'm reading, Colby said it yesterday. I don't know who said it first, but
it was yesterday. I mean, because when they asked Colby, they said Jorge, like they mentioned Jorge's name when they asked Colby. They said Jorge said that you're not getting. Like that's why they asked him. They asked him because of Jorge, because Jorge said he's not getting it. So then he confirmed it. Like he didn't just say it willingly. He's like, oh, I took a. No, they asked him. Jorge said you're not getting pay-per-view, and he said I'm not.
I think it makes more. Again, I think he's still just memeing because he's like, yeah, I took a. He probably if he said it more like, yeah, I took a pay cut, no pay-per-view buys. I just want to crack this guy's head in.
Yeah. Colby, the same guy who said I have a house around my neck, is bragging about his taking a pay cut. Yeah.
It was just a poor attempt at sounding badass. And plus, I also think it also sells the story even more so, right? Because that's what Colby's all about.
Yeah, I would need to look into that further. I mean, I don't know who said it first or anything.
I don't think it matters who says it first. This is more. I don't think this is a real bad blood legitimate. They're businessmen at the end of the day, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think you're off on that too. Colby,
I don't understand like why Colby would not get a pay-per-view cut, because like his last fight did 700,000. Like even if you say like, okay, his previous fights didn't do bad, like you're as good as your last card. I would guess. Like if you go to the negotiating table, you're not like Dana isn't gonna be like, yeah, but in UFC 245 you did this. No, you're gonna look at like what he did last.
What if Dana's like, what if you go to the negotiating table and Dana's like, I'm not gonna renegotiate.
What do you mean renegotiate?
Your contract is your contract. Fight it out.
Well,
didn't he get points for 268? Did he get points for 268?
I don't think so. I think only champion gets points. He might have.
I don't know. But I don't know. I don't think taking a pay cut makes zero sense in all these circumstances. Because like if it's his contract, willingly taking a pay, can you even legally do that?
No, he's not. He's not taking a pay cut.
Wait, what? You just said he was. He's not. Why do you ignore one part of the quote though, but accept the other part?
I'm taking a pay cut, as in I'm not getting paid as much as I want to. Maybe he did get pay-per-view for challenging for a title. Maybe that was in the contract where if you're in a title fight, you get a cut of the pay-per-view. And now because it's not a title fight, he's not getting a cut of the pay-per-view.
I think,
and that's what he means by a pay cut.
No, that's not. Come on, if you read the quote, he says it separately, doesn't he? I'm taking a pay cut. I'm not getting pay-per-view points, right?
I don't have it right in front of me.
Josh, do you have it in front of you? I'm pretty sure it's
let me. We should have researched this a little more clearly. All right,
this is the quote I'm seeing on this personal fight.
This is the quote that he said. Yeah, I forgoed the pay-per-view. I don't care about the pay-per-view for this fight. I want to come put on a show in the UFC and the show that I'm deserving of being a lifetime UFC fighter.
Where did the pay cut come in? Because didn't you hear something about a pay cut too, Dermer, or am I imagining this?
Then he goes.
Oh, this is what he said. I didn't come here to fight for money. I took a pay cut. I didn't care about the money for this fight. This is about settling a blood rivalry. This is a long time coming. Yada yada yada.
I think you can reasonably interpret either statement, right?
Also, I mean, it just doesn't make sense.
Colby's made his whole gimmick of acting rich and successful and all this and that. Why would he not act rich if given the opportunity?
He's trying to sell a blood feud. He said it in that quote himself. It's not about money.
Also, think about this. Like,
you can sell a blood. Shit, that's such. It's not about money. You get to fight him anyway. Of course, you could make as much money as you can want. Like you can. Why would you not? It's just stupid not to. Like you're literally gonna fight him anyway. Why would you not make as much money as possible for it? It doesn't make any fucking sense.
Well, you think he's telling the truth though.
No, I'm assuming that like that he would try to make a little bit of sense. So like, why would you take a if you can get the fight no matter what? Why wouldn't you get your full value? Like he's getting his full value, and his full value is less than Jorge's full value. Like that's just what it is.
So my question is, if he's not getting a pay-per-view cut, why is he going so hard in the paint on promoting this fight? Like if he's not getting a cut, like he's doing a lot. Like you have to agree. Like he's going out.
Yeah. I mean, it's his shtick. It's his shtick. He's built this is the thing. He's built his whole. Like he is if he didn't have this shtick, like he would be nothing because he's not fun to watch fight unless he's fighting like Usman.
I mean, I feel like he's going pretty fucking hard on this.
He is. I also, if you remember when he went against Woodley, like they didn't have a press conference together, but he didn't really go hard on Woodley at all. He's I'm gonna beat him. I'm better than him. He's like he also said I respect him though. He's a tough competitor, former champion. He understands the business. You got to build up your opponents. You know?
Yeah, but he went into all the fucking. He went at Woodley. They said a lot of shit. They went at each other. That was.
Maybe not, but nowhere near as much as this thing here, where you could see even in the press conference,
these two actually hate each other, so that makes sense. Like Colby's an asshole, but like him and Woodley didn't have this kind of beef. Like these two fucking hate each other. You can tell Jorge hates him too. You can tell Jorge really hates him because Jorge always, like for the last 3 years, has told the exact same story of why he hates him.
Let me dispute. Let me just use this logic. If you think this is a blood feud for real, why wouldn't he take a pay cut if it's not about the money? That doesn't prove he's not a draw.
But it proves he's an idiot. Why would he take a pay cut?
This is our claim, right? He's not a draw.
My claim is that if he's not getting pay-per-view points, then he's not that big of a draw, clearly. So yeah.
But don't you believe it's a real blood feud?
But yes, but those two things don't have to be. Those two things aren't. Like just because he fucking hates Jorge doesn't mean he shouldn't like want to get the most money possible for fighting him.
That doesn't mean just because he doesn't get pay-per-view points doesn't mean he's not a draw.
Hey, just can you
negotiator too, you know?
We gotta let each other talk. Like that's.
Are we? Sure.
We guys are just talking over each other.
Well,
like just because it's a blood feud doesn't mean. Just because they hate each other doesn't mean Colby shouldn't like want to get the max amount of money for this fight.
I mean, don't you think? What about if Colby's just an idiot negotiator?
That's also possible.
But so that isn't your claim doesn't necessarily lead to the conclusion. Then your evidence.
Oh, that's the thing. Like even if I struggle to believe that. Like I struggle to believe that Colby's like a bet because if Colby was worth pay-per-view points, he'd be getting them.
Do you think Dana White won't try to undersell you as much as possible? Maybe he hates the guy so much, you know. He's willing to do whatever.
Maybe, but he hasn't like lots of guys who can make him a lot of money.
Go for it. I don't think that proves he's not a draw, though. Like I think based on the evidence you've actually given so far, it proves that he's at least as much as Masvidal.
No, because Masvidal sold over 1 million.
Yeah, we've been over that though. Like we could kind of agree that there were some other factors that led to that number. Like, can we not agree on that?
Maybe some, but like at the end of the day,
look at the second fight. Like, just look at that second fight.
Yeah, and it did as many as Colby's fight with Usman, if not more. And Colby in the first fight between Jorge and Kamaru was horrible. And the first fight between Colby and Kamaru was one of the greatest fights of all time. So, like.
I mean, I don't think that's why like it went from like 1.3 million to 700,000. Like,
really, you don't think the 1.3 million people who saw Kamaru hold on to Jorge's ball sack for the fucking 25 minutes? Didn't think twice about paying $60 for the next one or $70 for the next one?
No. I don't think there's like precedent for that either. Like,
would you say he's as good a draw as Masvidal then, or
No, nowhere near. Masvidal gets okay, so they're fighting right now. Masvidal is getting a cut of the pay-per-view. Colby is not. Masvidal's like that. That just tells you all you need to know.
No, that's not related to him being a draw at all.
Okay, well, Masvidal sold more pay-per-views. That also tells you all you need to know. Like, you can if and but it any way you want, but Jorge sold a lot more pay-per-views than Colby has.
Historically, but again, like if you look at their last pay-per-views, it's pretty similar.
But like then you're boiling a whole like you're taking it down to one sample size. That's insane.
Well, no, because naturally too, you also become a bigger draw over time, ideally, right?
Yeah, I mean, like you're only like, yeah,
you're
like,
not only as good as your last. That doesn't make any fucking sense.
It's like the UFC isn't like paying you for like past performance. It's like what have you done recently?
But
right?
if you do, but like if you guys are gonna write off Masvidal's 1.2 as other factors, like why can't like the one time Colby did 700K, like I could say there's a billion other, you know what I mean? Like it's just
like what are the other factors that like? I guess
okay, so Colby's Colby's best pay-per-view ever, his best performance ever, is maybe Masvidal's second best.
Yeah, that also happens to be his last fight, so it's a good trajectory that you're going to. Like, why can't you assume that his next one's going to be as similar or even better?
Why would I assume what's going to happen in the future when I can just go based on the 5 fights he's already had, the 5 fights he's had in the last 5 fucking years?
So here's a question. Like,
I'm not trying to think the future. We're going based on what we've seen so far in the past, and that is Colby is not the type of draw that people expect. Like people think he is. He's just not.
Okay, so I have a question then. How many pay-per-view buys do you think this UFC 272 is going to sell?
Good question.
I would guess like 700, 800K.
That was what I was thinking, like 700, 800 probably.
I think if Jorge was fighting anyone else other than Colby, would he get 700K?
Usman again, probably.
The answer is no. It's no.
Usman again, he would.
Yeah, against Usman, yeah, because it's for the title.
And because Usman's so good.
I mean, Colby adds a lot of value to this card. Like, it's undoubtable.
I'm not saying Colby doesn't but like people assume like the perception of Colby, and even I had, was like he's like a sizable draw, and he's not. He's a respectable draw. Like he gets his. He's a great B-side. But like,
I mean,
what it is.
Well, again, I also think it's like the matchups matter a lot, right? Because like there's like that built-in rivalry for this pay-per-view, so like that's just gonna boost it a lot more than like if Colby fought like some other random dude, right? Like it's like when Khabib fought Conor, it's like wow, it's like that was like just the perfect matchup. You get like 2.4 million buys. Well, if Conor fights if Conor fights like Poirier, even it was like what, like 1.3, you know,
1.6 and 1.8.
Okay, but wasn't the third fight like 1.3?
No, 1.5. I have the numbers in front of me. 1.6 and 1.5.
Okay,
1.6 for McGregor, 3, 1.5.
Yeah. Considerably less than 2.4. So it's like a matchup thing too. And like Colby and Jorge it's just a really good matchup. There's a built-in storyline, like everything works. So to say that like Colby doesn't add anything, or I mean not even saying that, like to say that like Colby doesn't like bring eyes to this fight is like not true.
I think Colby is like
at least 40, 45, 50% of what's going to make this card.